to recording in progress. Here we go. Right, everybody. So thank you, everybody, for rushing like this and getting ready that extra minutes early. I appreciate it very much. I know that you all have very, very busy Monday mornings, and so it's not easy to keep going without a break. So I appreciate that, okay? And I want to dedicate the learning this morning to my dear husband, Lilui Nishmat Mordechai Natan ben Yoshua Shaul. It's his 20th yortzeit. It's 20 years now, and it was quite a moment, to be honest, this week. I have to tell you, I'm feeling rather weird. You know, sort of like happy for him that it's been 20 years in the Garden of Eden, and wondering, you know, quite how, looking back over a lot of things, it's been a moment to really look back and see. And one of the things I want to do, just to begin, is to tell you that he is really the inspiration and the source of everything that I have been doing since his passing, because he was the first person to realize the importance of translating the work of Rabbi Ashlag into an authentic English translation. It was just at the beginning of the internet. He was very much a pioneer in all these technological things. And he was the first one to see what the Kabbalah Center in Montreal, or into Los Angeles, was doing. And he said, "Ze lo yachol liot," this cannot be. And so we talked about it. And he said, it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. So what he decided to do was he devoted time and he translated the first translations of the introductions to Rabbi Ashlag's work, the introduction to the book of the Zohar and the introduction to the Talmud Masbirot. He translated them into English, and so his work was the core work which appeared in the Shadow of the Ladder. And I was the editor, he was the translator. Okay, I couldn't have translated them at that point. And then his work then became the main work which inspired me to do Tapestry for the Soul. Okay, so because that's based on the introduction to the Zohar, which he had already translated. So I used that translation as the core and then added the other translations together with it. But he was very much, I felt he was very much involved and very much with me throughout the process of all of those books. So
your mother is a financial supporter of the trend. I mean, you are you're the physical embodiment. You're the one who brought it onto a piece of paper and brought it into the world, but you were surrounded by people who
absolutely
were there pushing you to do this work and to bring it into the world.
Absolutely. My mother was also very, very unusual in the sense that she didn't come from a religious home. But she had a very good instinct for what was real and what was true. And she had a very interesting eye for how to give tzedakah. She would give tzedakah in very unusual ways, not to things which were obvious, but things which were just beginning, things which were just seeds. And she could see the growth that could come from it. She was very unusual in that respect. And she also, long before Rabbi Ashlag was known, before Rabbi Gottlieb was known, she would go to Rabbi Gottlieb's house from Jerusalem to Telstone, and he would give little shiurim. At that time, it wasn't a Beit Midrash, it was just his salon. So he would put a mechitza in the salon, and he would give shiurim. And she would go, and she supported his work. Mm-hmm. If we look in the beginnings of many of the books, many of the books, might even be this one, I don't know. Many of the books you find, it's my family is at the beginning of my mother's family who perished in the Holocaust. She dedicated book after book after book of the writings of Rabbi Ashlag to help get them out. And this was long before anybody even heard of Rabbi Ashlag. Nobody had even heard of Rabbi Gottlieb. She had this instinct. And she said to me when Mark died, she said to me, you've got to continue. You've got to continue. I will help you. I will help you financially. I want you to continue.
Did she introduce your husband to Ashlag?
No, I tell you, there's there's a jeweler in Biria called David Baruch. Don't know if you know him. Yeah. He was the first one who introduced me to Rabbi Ashlag, and then through me, Mark, and then I can't remember how my mum heard of it. Maybe through me, I don't remember. But then she went to she was very, very, she had an eye for what was true, what was real. I mean, if I were to tell you other things that the Arafai Institute in the thing, which is an institute for ecological and law and thing, she was one of the helpers to. She would give them give the stock in exactly the right moment to help something grow. I think it might be. I don't know. But my mum was. Yeah, my mum was very involved with this sort of thing. Amen. Great. So okay. So we're going to learn Lilui Nishmat, my husband. Okay. And I also want to add to that Mordechai Natan ben Yoshua Shaul. And also I want to add to that also his brother and his mother, who all died in the same week. So his brother is Michael ben Yoshua Shaul, and his mother was Hannah Devora bat Mordechai. Okay, so I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that they all knew when it was the right moment. Okay. On this very happy note, we'll go right into Rabbi Ashlag. I mean, I'm sure he's here. I'm sure he's listening.
Was it the same year that they all?
No. But all the same. It's all in the same week, but in different years. But I'm sure there's some sort of connection there. Yeah. So here we are in the Hatama for the Panim Meirot Masbirot, and we are in the middle of Ot Yud Tet. Okay, and what we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with the consequences. Okay, here's Adam and Hava. They've eaten from the tree of knowledge. They've taken in that huge Yetzer Hara, that huge will to receive for themselves alone. And as we discovered last week, that's caused quite a bit of changes in reality. One change in reality is that their soul had to leave, and they now have just a little sweat drop of soul, okay, which we all have. We all have a little sweat drop of soul, and all of us together, the whole of the human community, past, present, and future, all make up together the one soul of Adam. We've also got the fact of physical death now, which we didn't have before. His soul originally was eternal, his body was eternal. Now his eternal body had to leave, and he was given a temporal body, as Rabbi Ashlag says, dependent on a piece of bread. Okay, so he's now got a temporal body. And also reality also had to change so that he could support these bodies which are in the framework of uncleanness, because the framework of holiness, which was the Garden of Eden, wasn't suitable any longer to give the sustenance that the physical bodies need. So what we learned last week was about the breaking of the vessels and how the sparks from the breaking of the vessels moved from the framework of holiness and came to the framework of evil to sustain reality, okay, in the new reality that is being created. Okay, so that's what we looked at last week. All right, now where we got up to is more or less where it says, V'nei kula sheni haniskal, where we're going to start from there. So the second kilkul, the first one we talked about, pass over your thing and I'll see if I can find it for you.
It's right there, correct?
Well,
the beginning of the tet, or
no, it's they're halfway through your tet. Thanks.
Say the name, the words again.
V'hinei kula sheni, more.
Before that, spirituality sustained us, and now we need a physical.
Yeah, we need a physical world to sustain us. Yeah. So we're going to stop more or less there. So here we're going to begin again. Okay. So the second kilkul, this comes from the Gemara. that the Sitra Achra comes and takes his soul. Rotzoni lomar, I want to say, Gam ze hachelek hakatan shel haneshama, even this tiny little bit of soul that's left to the human being, hanishalo la'adam, which is left to the human being, b'fchinat zeya, it's like a little sweat drop, shel chaim hakodmim, of the previous life. Haya Sitra Achra oshakata, the Sitra Achra, the framework of evil, oppresses it. Al yedei ota hashpa'ah ba'atzma, by the very giving, by the very light which it gets. She mashpat lo me'apach nitzotzim, which it gives to it from the 288 sparks, shenaflu l'gorala, which fell into its portion. Now, what I want to say is like this. He wants to talk to us a little bit about what the Yetzer Hara is really like and what the major problem is with it. Now, the basic problem with the Yetzer Hara is that it's got light, okay? Now, we just said without light in the framework of evil, we won't survive, okay? But with light, there's a problem. What's the problem? It entices us, okay? It winks at us, okay? It does. It entices us. So it's like this two-edged sword. How do we handle it, okay? So what he wants to teach us now is he wants to actually go into, in detail, how the Yetzer Hara winks at us and entices us so that we become aware and we know how to deal with it, okay? So he's not going to go into it in order to make us feel bad. He's going to go into it in order to wake us to say, look, you see, this is how it functions. Now you're aware, you can take more, you've got more handle on it, okay? So this is what he wants to say. So to understand this, you need to really look at how the Sitra Achra actually functions. So you become wise to her ways.
She's female.
What?
She's female, the Yetzer Hara here.
The Yetzer Hara, yes.
Yeah? Okay.
No, okay, but the Eishet Chayil Ateret Ba'ala. Okay, I want to just relate to what Ilana said, okay? Because I don't want people to go around thinking because we're female, we've got a bigger Yetzer Hara, all right? Because every human being is made up of male and female, okay? Maza male, the male aspect is the light, the female aspect is the vessel. Without the vessel, the light can't shine, okay? So in every single aspect of creation, we have Borei v'nivra, light and vessel, creator and created, okay?
It's
now,
what every sphere is. It's vessel and light.
Very good, that's right. So we absolutely have in every single aspect of life, light and vessel, okay? We had Yitzhak and Rivka. Yitzhak is the light. Where would he have been without Rivka? Okay? Rivka is the embodiment of the Shekhinah, of her generation. It was Rivka who understood precisely what had to happen with those brachot. Okay? The Eishet Chayil Ateret Ba'ala, because when we correct the vessel, we actually show the light even much more greater than it can on its own. Okay, in fact, we can't grasp any light without the correct vessel. All right, so don't anybody get negative feelings about being feminine here. All right.
How do we create that vessel?
Well, I'm going to stick with the learning. Okay, I'm not going to go off track. All right.
We are vessels. We don't need to create it.
All the parts of reality in our physical world are branches which are drawn from their root. Kmo chotem mechotam, like the seal, the template from the seal, the stamp from the thing that stamps it. Okay, me'olam elyon, from the highest world, ve'elyon migavoa himin, from a higher world, and a world which is even higher than that. V'gavoa migavoa gavoa v'chule. So what is he showing us? Each world, let's take this physical world, okay, is the stamp, like, the old-fashioned stampers, okay? You'd stamp it down, you have a seal and the stamp, okay? Then that is the stamp from the seal, which is the higher world. And that itself is the stamp from the world above. And that itself is the stamp from the world above. So all reality comes step by step from each world above it. Then how are they different? The only difference there is from the branches connected to their roots, is only in which material each world is made of. The physical material in this world is material, like molecules and things. Whereas the material of the world of Yetzirah is spiritual material, if you like. It comes from the spirituality of the world of Yetzirah. And this is true for every single world according to its particular characteristic. Every single world has a different characteristic. We're not going to go into them now. However, their relationships and the different happenings that happen with them, are completely proportional. They're completely, what's happening in the world of Yetzirah affects what's happening here. What's happening here affects what's happening in the world of Yetzirah. You know the way I like to look at it? You can do this yourselves. You take your hand, okay, above the paper. This is nice and warm and three-dimensional, okay, colors. And then you wiggle your fingers. The shadow, which is completely flat and two-dimensional and only black and white, has exactly the same movements and exactly the same proportion as the one above. So you can imagine this is the world of Yetzirah, much more colorful and full, and we are like the world of, and we're just a shadow. Do you see what I'm saying? On the other hand, when I wiggle my thumb, they both wiggle in the same direction. Okay? Right.
So it's an illusion that it's like an illusion of the movement.
What I want to say is that our work here affects the higher worlds, and the higher worlds affect us, and never mind the fact we're made up of different materials, and it has direct relationships of roots and branches. The roots are in the higher worlds, the branches are in this world. Okay, that's the point we need to take. Umatzana Bazohar Kadosh, Parashat Tazria. I'm moving to the next paragraph. And we found in the Holy Zohar, Parashat Tazria, שהנגעים שבגופי בני אדם הם הענפים של הסטרה האחרונה העליונה. That the diseases which attack the bodies of human beings are branches of the higher sitra achra. They don't come out of nowhere. They come from the higher sitra achra. ולפיכך, ניקח להשכיל את קומת הבעל חי, ואנו מוצאים בו שזה הנביא המתהווה בגופו, על ידי השגת התענוג, הוא המרבה ומפריע לו החיים. Now we find that when there is life force, which is flowing through a whole species of animals, okay, and the more it gets joy and happiness, the more it gets life force, okay? And so the divine providence has stamped, even in the smallest of animals, the smallest of smallest things, okay, wherever they look, they can find pleasure and joy. Okay, even like little ants. Okay, they can find a little bit of whatever and they're happy. All right, all right. Since their own level is so small, they have to have lots and lots and lots and lots of fertility in order that they can grow and flourish. And their pleasure is found. And so we see that the light of joy is the father of life. But this rule, that joy and happiness is the father of life, is only true if the life force comes to the whole of the species together. Okay? But in the joy of separation, klomar, that is to say, that if the joy is received only to a tiny portion or to a specific element of the species, then we find the opposite is true. So, right, let's take a moment. If we think about the human species, all right, all the human beings together, if we were to find something which gives pleasure and joy to all human beings, it increases fertility and increases joy, increases happiness and increases life and increases growth. If we find something which gives pleasure and joy just to one aspect of human beings, what does it inspire? Competition, wars, jealousy, envy, right?
Right.
Okay, so we can see that this is totally true. When life force is given to all human beings,
For example, what is it?
we'll go into an example in a minute, okay? All right. Okay, so now he's going to give an example, all right? If the joy only comes to separation, okay, then we find the opposite rule is true. For example, im yesh lo makom lakoi bivsaro, if there is a sore on one's flesh, for example, in a dog, okay, and it demands it scratches and it's scratching and irritating, so you keep scratching and scratching. On the one hand, the scratching gives him a feeling of exceptional joy, but this type of joy, a drop of the drug of death is there, right there with it. If he doesn't take heed to his inclination, he doesn't govern his inclination, he finds that the demand for that he keeps longing to scratch, he finds that the ulcer gets worse and worse and worse. According to the measure of joy in the scratching, the ulcer will get worse. And the joy will turn to pain. And although at the beginning it will start to heal again, it becomes again more itchy. And in a greater measure than before. And if he doesn't govern his own inclination, and again he's going to pay a price. The ulcer simply grows until it gives him, in the end, that infects all his blood. And in the end, he dies through receiving joy. Lakuta, something like that.
It's right here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, sweetheart. Yeah, there we go.
Thanks so much.
All right. Oh, did I forget to switch that thing off again? Sorry. It'll stop in a minute. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that the person or the animal or whatever dies through receiving the joy, okay, because it is joy of separation. It's not joy that's coming to all the animal or all the human being, okay, it's joy of separation, all right? So it's only coming to one aspect of the coma. And in this way, the death rules on that spiritual essence, as opposed to joy, which gives life force when it applies to everybody together. If you just single out one aspect, you get into the Sitra Achra.
But is there any?
Sorry?
Is there any such thing as something that gives joy to everybody?
Torah?
Hashem?
Torah
Why are
mitzvot?
there so many anti-Semites in the world if the Torah brings joy?
Not
One
Torah,
second.
not everybody. Torah only people who
No,
study Torah, not people who not study Torah.
I think that you're making a little mistake about that. The Torah helps also the anti-Semites, okay? And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you think about what we do on Pesach, all right? You've got all the archetypes are there. You've got Pharaoh, the Egyptians, the children of Israel, Moses, all this archetype. So whenever you want to look at that kind of thing, look at Pesach, all right? Because then you've got. So it says God saved us with an outstretched arm. What is the Zohar Netuya? Yamin Hashem or Ser Chayil? The right hand of God. The right hand of God is Chesed. So how can it be? Right. So what is Chesed to the side Hatov is Din to the Egyptians. Okay, but the din to the Egyptians is actually doing them good. Okay, if we take the fact of the Yetzar Tov and Yetzara B'tochi within me, okay, then when I say to Hashem, can you help me deal with my Yetzer Hara? And he does din on my Yetzer Hara, I have to be glad about that. Do you see what I'm saying? So the definition of good is not what feels good. We need to look at what is good.
So I guess Ta'anug is a little bit distracting.
Ta'anug, what he means by Ta'anug, okay, I understand what you're saying. It's a poor translation maybe. What he means by Ta'anug is true joy, okay? But you see, you've got to really flow with Rabbi Ashlag, all right?
Yeah.
So there's the true joy of Torah mitzvot, okay? And there is, like he says, the joy the pleasure you get in scratching an ulcer, all right? All right, they both are joy, but you have to, use your common sense about which joy you're applying here, all right?
But it cannot be for all people. It can be certain community of people, like people who believe in Hashem, it's one kind of joy. People who don't believe in Hashem, it's completely different. What he's talking about, there is nothing it's for all people.
One of the things that we have to learn when we learn Rabbi Ashlag is we have to get a relative sense of who we are and who he was. Okay, so what I mean by that is when he says something which at the beginning sounds to me like I don't really understand what he's saying, I have to become very mitbatelet. I have to nullify myself and say, okay, he's the tzaddik. Okay, he's seeing things from a higher perspective than I'm seeing. If I don't understand right now, I just wait patiently and maybe what he's saying will become clear. Okay, but what I can't do is say, oh no, he's wrong. I can't say that.
No, I don't think he's wrong. I just try to understand. Maybe he means not for all people, like billions of people on earth. I don't know what he means.
Well, we can
But
think
it's
it,
not
okay,
understand
all right.
what he means.
So what I suggest we do is everybody go home, okay? And between now and next week, we can all think about what would bring joy to all humanity. For example, the abolition of slavery. I personally think that was a good thing, which brings joy to all humanity. Okay? But you can think about you can all come up with ideas and think about what things bring good to all humanity. Okay? And tell me your ideas next week.
So she was saying, except the slave owners that are not going to be happy about that. So that I said, it's what you said, that it's going to bring din to the Yetzer Hara.
Exactly.
Which then brings the oneg.
Exactly. It's not, we're not talking about immediate, we're talking about what raises up, what brings, he says, what brings life force to all humanity, all the Koma is the life which brings joy and love to everybody. Okay. Okay, I mean, if Hamas wants to sit under tunnels and murder them to kill themselves, and that's not going to give them much joy, but I can't help that. But in general, yes.
Maybe Chesed, because everybody loves Chesed.
Right. On this happy note, we're going to keep going. Okay, we've seen the problem, we've seen the idea. We can all have a think about it and think about it. I agree with you. I want to say one thing is I really agree that these ideas take time. Okay, this is like maybe the third, fourth time I'm learning this material, and I translated it, and I still have to think about it. So if you get these ideas, and it's the first time we're thinking about them, it seems natural to me that we should question, okay? So we can think about it and question it and say, okay, I don't quite see it, but take it home and always think about it from the perspective of he's the tzaddik and I'm me, okay? So we have to bear in mind that it's more likely to be right than I am. But means what it does is it opens the possibilities for me to try and see how I can understand what he's saying. All right? So now we can see the form of the sitra, a higher form of the sitra achra, from its beginning to its end. He says here the heel. Asher rusha huatzon lekabel ach la'atzma, whose beginning is the will to receive only for itself, v'lo lashpia michutz la, and not to give anything outside itself, k'tchunat ha'tviyah sheb'basar ha'menuga, and this is just like the demand for scratching in the ulcer, be'ech klalo shel komat hachai, with respect to the general well-being of the whole animal. V'gufa shel sitra achra hi tzurata shel min ha'tviyah, and the actual action of the sitra achra is the desire, she'no omed li para, which simply won't get fulfilled. Shapiron she'u olech uporea, that his demand simply grows and grows and grows. Od magdil hachova lekuta, it simply increases its desire and the deficit that it's causing. Kedugumat kabbalat tanug al yedei hachikuch, just like the joy you get when scratching an ulcer, ultimately it causes death. Vikvash l'sitra achra, and the heel of the sitra achra, yatipal shasamavet, is the drop of this drug of death, which oppresses the person and separates him from the last spark of life which he's got left. Like the drop of the drug of death, which infects, which poisons all the blood in the animal. And this is what the sages said, that ultimately comes and takes his soul. That this is what the sages said, that the Malach HaMavet invites with a drawn sword, and he's got a drop of bitterness at the end of his sword. And the person opens his mouth and he pops the little bit of drop in, and he dies. And the sword of the Malach HaMavet is the is the sitra achra, which is the sword, because of the separation which grows in the aspect of receiving. Shapirud machrivo. It's the separation which destroys him. And the person has to open his mouth because he has to receive the bounty and the his existence from under its hand till he gets that last bit of poison, which is in the end of the sword, which is the end of separation to the last spark of the soul of his life. Okay, now this sounds pretty grim, okay? All right, okay, but one of the things I like about Rabbi Ashlag is he doesn't shove it under the carpet. He's about the only person I really know who really describes the Sitra Achra precisely what it is. Everybody else focus on the Yetzer HaTov, all right? But it's nice to hear somebody who's telling you the truth. This is the Sitra Achra, this is what it is. Now, we all know it. We all know it. We know we shouldn't do it, and yet we do, okay? We all know we shouldn't watch that thing, and yet we do. We know we shouldn't smoke that cigarette, and yet we do. We know we shouldn't eat that sticky cake, and yet we do, okay? All right? We know when we're eating the sticky cake that it's not going to do us any good, okay? But it looks so tempting. Yes? That's the Sitra Achra. That's when we get joy to only a bit of ourselves, like the sticky cake. All right, we get joy to our taste buds. Woo, feels great. Okay, and to the rest of our body, it feels awful. All right, okay, that's the whole point. It's when it gives joy or pleasure just to one bit and not to the whole thing as a whole, then you know you're on the wrong direction. Okay.
He says we have to open our mouth to it.
When we have one second.
Other source that we can open our mouth to.
One second. If a person has become accustomed to obeying the rules of the Sitra Achra, he's on a path which eventually he can't get off. All right, now I want to tell you a story, true story. Okay, I was as a young doctor in the hospital. I was what do you call it here, stagiaire? I was a stagiaire. And I was working on a...
It's called addiction.
Intern, resident, something. I don't know what it is. I was something. The lowest of the low. Whatever. And there was a ward, you won't believe this, it was in England. There was a ward made up of people who had smoked so badly that they needed amputations from their arms or their legs because they had destroyed the blood vessels of their peripheries. And there was one man, you won't believe it, there was still a balcony for smokers. Okay? And there was one man, I will never forget him in my life. He was crying with pain, a grown man, crying with pain, crying with pain, no matter what we gave him, didn't help. Okay? It was beyond all that. And he was still smoking. Okay, because that's the description of the Sitra Achra. When what's happened is we become addicted, we become so used to listening to its enticement. Now, what I want to tell you is this is what Rabbi Ashlag is saying. So it says, on the one hand, we need the 288 sparks to sustain the us while we're in the framework of evil. On the other hand, you can see what happens. We get caught by the very pleasures in the framework of evil and causes us to be more separated. It's a problem. And he says this is the problem. All right? This is the real problem of the Sitra Achra. Okay? So,
inevitable.
What?
It's like inevitable. It's in creation. That's what he's saying. It's like invested in the structure of creation.
Well, no, it isn't inevitable. It was inevitable until we all stood at Mount Sinai. When we stood at Mount Sinai, that was the moment when the trufah was given. Okay? Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Torah Tavli. Okay? That tells us how powerful Torah is. We all feel the difficulty with our Yetzer Hara, okay? And we all need to know, Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Torah Tavlin. No, it is not inevitable, all right? It looks inevitable from the aspect of creation. I agree with you, but it's not inevitable because Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Torah Tavlin. If there wasn't a Yetzer Hara, God wouldn't have needed to have given us the Torah, okay? It's because of the Yetzer Hara that we need the Torah. If you look at that Midrash, when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up on the mountain, never forget this Midrash, very important Midrash, okay? The angels say to God, the angels say to God, what's this fellow doing here? What's this human being doing here? He says, he shouldn't be here. And God says, I've come to give him my Torah. He's come to receive my Torah. And the angels are horrified.
He's going to mess it up.
Horrified. Like you want to give your precious jewel to this human being, this mortal? And God said to Moses, answer them. And he said, do you have a Yetzer Hara? Do you have anger? Do you have jealousy? Do you have lusts? Do you have sensual desires? No. Okay? You don't. All right, you don't need it. We need it. We need it because it's exactly that God created us with two systems. On the one hand,
not God created us. It started from Adam eating the fruit. Before that, Hashem didn't create it this way. It just started from Adam. That's what it started.
Okay, that's fine. We've been learning that. That's fine.
That was 5 weeks ago.
Not from the creation, not from creation.
Okay, right. Beseder Gemor, I'm glad you got it. So it was meant to be this way, all right? On the one hand, so we have the Yetzer Hara, we're meant to have the Yetzer Hara, okay? All right, and the tikkun of it is the Torah, okay? Through the Torah and only through the Torah can we know what to do, because our nature, he's described our nature here, okay? He's described what is, we all know it, okay? That is our nature. Without the Torah and mitzvot, we would absolutely, it would be inevitable. Without the Torah. But with the Torah, it's not inevitable at all. Okay? This is why I love Rabbi Ashlag. He says it the way it is. Right.
That we have free will, that one can do it or not to do it. We have power over it.
1 second. I just want to skip to this bit here. I wonder if we can, I'm just trying to look at the clock and make sure I can get what I want to get done.
I think we need a few more weeks.
Yeah.
We've got 1 more week next week.
I think we need a few more weeks.
No, we don't need a few more. We're okay. We're okay. We see Bachte Kilkulim Hanal. Okay, well, just do a quick bit here, and then I know where I want to get to, so okay. We see Bachte Kilkulim Hanal, Mitkalkel Gamken Binyan Gufo Shel Adam, Liot Mutam Mitzad Yitzia B'Tachlit HaDiyuk, Lekabalat Shefot Shel Kiyumo, Me'orechet HaKdusha. He says now, as a consequence, the building of our body of the human being, which originally was absolutely designed in the ultimate of perfection and accuracy to receive the bounty of his existence from the framework of holiness, okay? ככל פעולה מאושרה של קיימה, יהיה חלקים משומרים מהעדפה ומגרעת עד לכלשהו. And he says, now, since it was done in absolute perfection, it doesn't have any excess or any deficiencies. However, all right, when the new body that we've got is not bar kaima, is not eternal body, and halker chasrei mezek, and its parts are not quite unified in the way they should be, and it's got excess or normal deficiencies. So he says, go on, since the human being passed from the framework of holiness to the framework of the Sitra Achra, because he took into his body the Eitz Hadat, the aspect of the Eitz Hadat, there are now extra portions in his body which are extra, which it doesn't actually need them, okay, because they don't receive anything from the life force given by the Sitra Achra. However, they still need to take in sustenance for his body more than he actually requires. Okay, and so the body works for them. Okay, and therefore he has waste products, and so he eats more than he needs to eat, like in a precise sort of way. And so he has all sorts of waste products, and this eventually means that his body himself is mortal. Okay, right. So that was just a quick précis of that next paragraph, and I want to continue where it says "Vatazachinu v'haskil ladat." So now we have understood the two completely opposite ways in which God governs us, that we have talked about. Where it says Vatazachinu, I skipped all the way down to Vatazachinu. It says in paragraph Kaf. Okay, right. Because this is the really good bit. All right, because now the divine providence of sustaining reality has moved from the framework of holiness to the framework of the Sitra Achra. And that is because the addition of the greatness of the will to see for itself, with which all human beings are now connected, because of the eating from the tree of knowledge, which caused separation, opposition of form, and hatred between the framework of holiness and between the bodies of the human beings of this world. And because the holiness can no longer uphold them and give them their and feed them from its high table. And therefore, in order that reality should not be destroyed, and in order to bring about their tikkun, the main bounty was passed over to uphold reality, which is the 288 sparks to the framework of the Sitra Achra. And that is what gives life force to all human beings. Bizman hemshech hatikunim, during the time when they are doing their tikkun. Okay, let's say, for example.
Can you read it again one more time, just with the sentence?
1 second, let me just give an example. Let's say, for example, a person sins, or he doesn't do a mitzvah, and he's walking out in the street, okay? Now, if there was instant judgment, and he's done this sin, he hasn't got time to do tshuva. Do you see what I'm saying? If God was to repay us precisely at the moment when we sinned, all right, when would we be able to do tshuva? I've done things in my life, or, I'm thinking a lot about my life. It's a 20-year anniversary. There's a lot to think about. And I'm thinking of times when I, quite frankly, could have spoken to my husband in a little different way. You know what I mean? I'm older now, I'm wiser, hopefully, and I would have chosen different words, or I would have been more patient, or I would have, and when I think about this, 20 years feels to me like a very long time. But on the other hand, it gives me a perspective that I now know that if he was to turn up now, I would be able to handle things differently. And it's taken me maybe that 20 years of thinking, of understanding, of doing tshuva. And I needed all of that 20 years. And if God hadn't given me all that sustenance, during all that time, when I was still in the dark, if God, do you see what I'm saying? It took me a long time for the penny to drop. For some things, it's not 5 minutes. Some things, it's obvious, some things, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I did that. On the spot, we can do tshuva. Other things which are more complicated, especially with relationships, they can take a long time for us to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what we should have done, what we shouldn't have done. Do you see what I'm saying? And in all that time, God has got the patience to keep us giving breakfast, dinner, and supper, or whatever, okay, and food over our heads, and doing what we need to do, and giving us our existence, our lives, because he's got the patience to wait for us to understand so that we can do tshuva. And if we don't manage to do tshuva in this lifetime, so we'll just turn up again and he'll wait for us again the next lifetime. I mean, hopefully we won't do that, but you know what? Okay, but you see what I'm saying? So now we see why we do need sustenance in the Sitra Achra, in the framework of evil, to keep us going whilst we are still connected with that framework of evil. Because God wants to give us that chance, okay, gives us that time. Ilan, I think you pointed out last week that it was an issue of time. Absolutely. To give us that time, that gives us that time to think about it, to give us that time to work things through. Do you see what I'm saying? So now we see why it is important that the framework of evil is upheld to give us that chance to do our tikkun. Because we can't always do it in one go. All right? We are built, our building now, okay? Not Adam's. Adam, you were right what you said, Olga. Adam started in the framework of holiness. Leah. Oh, so sorry, I called you Olga. I'm so sorry.
It's okay that we said the who cares.
I was reading your book. I know it's Leah. I don't know why I said Olga. I apologize. Leah, I apologize. Right, thank you.
Doesn't matter.
So, yes. So what you said was right. Adam was formed from the framework of holiness, and he ate the framework of evil. We are born the other way round. Being Adam's children, and after the sin of the tree of knowledge, we start from the framework of evil, grow under the framework of evil for the first 12 years or 13 years of our lives, okay? And then we start Torah and mitzvot to begin, if we're lucky, to begin to take the aspects of the framework of evil and bring them into Kedusha. And it takes a lifetime. It takes a lifetime to understand what on earth we're doing. And what Rabbi Ashlag shows us here is he tells us, listen, this is the Sitra Achra, this is what it's like, this is how it entices you, but you should know that that enticement isn't for your benefit. Eventually it'll kill you, so don't keep going with it, okay? But what you need to have that light in the framework of evil, because to give you time. But what really brings you back to holiness is Torah and mitzvot. Without Torah and mitzvot, we don't have a chance. So the Torah and mitzvot brings us back, but we need that time to do it, okay? So this is why there's lights given to the framework of evil, which is called the klipot. The klipot are called the lights in the framework of evil, in order to keep us going, to enable us to do tshuva. And now we can, because we are made of two frameworks, we've got the framework of evil and the framework of holiness, we can move things from one side to the other. That's what tshuva is. Okay? Amazing. Baruch Hashem. So now he tells us, yeah.
Very vivid image of the sword.
He does.
Yeah, with the something at the end.
With
that
the
goopy
teapot,
stuff.
the teapot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the parallel image?
We want,
You know, so
I
we
see.
can open our mouth to
To Torah mitzvot.
Yeah, but you can't swallow that whole, you know.
And live. Yeah. The
Um,
opposite stays well and die.
And also, I want to ask, this is the Pipiot of Mitapechet. It's this.
it's probably, yes. I don't know. It probably is the same. Yes, it probably
Two
is.
cherubims that
Yeah.
are there.
I'm not sure. I'm not, you know something, I don't want to say yes when it might be no.
That's the
Okay.
first time the word cherubim.
I don't, yeah.
How long were you married?
I think also 20 years. I think it was 20, I think I was married 20 years and I've been away. I mean, we've been separated 20 years. I think so. I think so.
Wow. I don't think they're
It's quite a moment.
Wow, big deal. That's
First time that cherubim
Yeah.
are.
So what
And you'll be there.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel a bit weird. There's no question about it. But
So
anyhow,
what how I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong. When the Holy Spark come here, there are two ways they can go. Either go to Klippa or they go to Mitzvot. If they go to Mitzvot, they come back to Hashem purified. Or go to Klippa, then they have to do Teshuvah,
Right.
to repent, to purify. Right?
That's right.
Either two ways, no
That's
other
right.
ways.
I want to start, just to end for today, I'm probably go back to this last bit next week, but I just want to finish on a good note.
It's all good notes. It's all good notes.
Okay. Bezet Tavin, I like this piece. I really like this piece it's from the Gemara. Bezet Tavin, now I can understand, Meshe Katuv B'Tosafot, Ketuvot, Daf Kuf Daled, in the Tosafot of Ketuvot, Daf Kuf Daled, that before a person prays that he should bring Torah into his body, he should pray that he should not bring delicacies into his body. That's what the Tosafot says there. I've looked it up, it's true, it does say it. Okay? Why? Because of the form of receiving for oneself alone, which is the opposite of Kedusha, tends to multiply and grow according to the measure of joy it gives a person. And therefore, how is he going to bring to attain the light of Torah into his body, which is opposite, okay, to this light of the Sitra Achra, okay, when he's got all these pleasures and joys in his body. However, according to the greater of the action, more actions that he does in Torah mitzvot, we find gradually, step by step, he merits to transform his form of receiving to that of giving unconditionally. And he equalizes his desire to the framework of holiness. And he now becomes in equivalence of form and with love between them, as it was prior to the sin of the tree of knowledge. And he merits to the light of Torah, because he enters into the domain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's really beautiful. So all is not lost. Torah mitzvot absolutely deals with this issue. Okay?
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
Okay, Baruch Hashem, on this happy note.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you give a typical example of that?
Torah mitzvot.
Before imbibing any delicacies to pray.
Well, look, everybody wants to ask a question today, because I have to Zoom, because the taxi's waiting for me outside, I hope. Everybody who wants to ask a question, what I suggest today is that, I can't figure out how to do this. What I suggest you do is you think of your question, and you see about if you can answer it yourself during the week. Okay? All right?
Delicacy now desires, what we call delicacy, not what we don't need. It's not bread, it's not food, it's delicacy, it's something we don't need.
Okay.